everybody knew from the first week after October 7th that Israel planned to commit genocide, traditionally defined genocide, targeting a population because of their bloodline and trying to exterminate or move them. Everyone knew this because Israel announced it. Twice in October of 2023, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said out loud in a public speech, the Palestinians are Amalek. Amalek, a reference that many in the West didn't get, but everyone in the region understood. And it's a reference to 1 Samuel 15. True, on October 9th. So 3 days after the Hamas attacks, the defense minister of Israel, their own Pete Hegseth, described his plans for Gaza, not for Hamas, for the entire territory, for the over 2 million people who live there.
Tucker Carlson here knows exactly what he's doing. This isn't journalism. This is calculated attempt to manipulate your emotions. I'm not saying what's happening in Gaza isn't horrific. You'd be fucking crazy not to think that, right? Of course it is. But Tucker is forcing you to focus only on one side of the coin here. That's not honest reporting. It's blatant framing, and frankly, it's ridiculous. I'm going to show you exactly what he buried to make the narrative work. Let's get into it, and I'll show you what he conveniently decided to leave out. Let's start with the rhetoric he pretends doesn't exist. This here is the charter of 1998, from the 1998, the Hamas charter. Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just like it obliterated others before it. Really? This is an ancient, forgotten history. The Palestinians elected Hamas in 2026 to lead them. And mind you, it was almost a landslide. This charter was public at the time. It was the foundational ideology of that Hamas or the Palestinians. And they were proud of it. Yet, they still won by a landslide again. Tucker wants you to be outraged by the dehumanizing rhetoric. But he never mentions this, does he now? No way. Why? Because it doesn't fit his narrative. Let's keep going. Tucker acts like violence in this region started yesterday. But let's take a look at the reality and what it hides, right? Before the first Intifada, yes, the first Intifada even began in 1987, Israel had already faced decades of Fedayeen raids. Fedayeen are those people that want to kill themselves in the name of the religion, right? The suicide bombing type things. And in 1967, 1973 wars, airplane hijackings, hostage crises, and systemic bombings, groups like the PLO and the PFLP were operating not just outside, but also inside Israel at the time. Again, he conveniently skips his entire timeline to frame the current situation as the one-sided act of aggression. That's not reporting, that's selective editing. Let's keep going. And it's just not in the past. Let's take a look at the recent Palestinian leadership, can we? You've got Yasser Arafat in 1994, comparing the Oslo Accords to a temporary truce while citing the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which is in so many words is a tactical temporary treaty to buy time. To buy time to do what? To consolidate all your weapons, to gain more strength, to get your finances in order, and then again the war's back on. Let's keep going. You've got Abbas as recently as 2023 claiming Jewish persecution was about money, usury, and not anti-Semitism. Then you've got Ismail Haniyeh, who spent years praising the resistance and rejecting the entire legitimacy of Israel. It wasn't a legitimate state, far as he was concerned. These are hidden facts, but he ignores them, and so you focus only on the rhetoric he wants you to see and be mad about. It's classic bait and switch. And if you ask me, again, ridiculous, right? And then, of course, who can forget the October 7th? Tucker mentions that in passing. Did you even happen to catch that when he mentions it? Of course not. Let's take a quick look.
And shortly after the attacks by Hamas into southern Israel in October of 2023, Israel decided to...
He ignored the nature of the attack itself. This isn't just a military operation. Hamas operatives literally brought their own cameras, their own GoPros to film themselves massacring civilians. They live streamed the abuse. They posted the victory videos and they sent images of what they were doing to the victims' families. Talk about dehumanizing, right, Tucker? They did this on purpose. It was a deliberate, calculated use of digital terror to maximize psychological trauma. When you look at the evidence, the thousands of hours of footage, documentation, systematic execution, sexual violence, and torture, you aren't looking at a resistance movement. You are looking at an entity that used its own cameras to prove its genocidal intent. But did Tucker mention it? No. All he did was talk about Bibi and the Israelis. Of course not, he didn't mention any of it. Tucker is quick to pull the firearm on dehumanizing language used by Israeli officials, right? But he is completely silent on the actual acts documented by Hamas Palestinians' own cameras. If you want to talk about dehumanization, why skip these perpetrators who filmed themselves doing the dehumanization? Not just talk about it, not words, they did the act. Now, in closing, it's a brilliant way, in a twisted sort of way, I guess. Let me explain. Tucker masterfully tries to give himself immunity here against being called out by focusing exclusively on the West, specifically on US and Israel, discuss Palestinians and Hamas. By standing on the moral high ground, he makes it seem like anyone who disagrees with his framing is somehow defending these things that he's highlighting here. But notice the sleight of hand. He isolated the language on one side, stripped away the context of the decades of violence that preceded it, ignores the documented atrocities captured by the Hamas's own cameras, and then demands you be outraged by and on his terms. He's not interested in a balanced view at all here. No way. He's interested in creating a narrative where he is the only one telling you the truth while burying the reality that contradicts his worldview. So if you're watching his clips, ask yourself, why is he only showing you half of the picture? Don't let him play you. Dig into the context he's ignoring. Look at the receipts and always ask what's being left out. This is it for me today, guys. Thanks for joining. Until next time, be safe, be happy, and see you soon.